The US Army's Next Generation Squad Weapon program is their latest attempt to replace the legacy M4 platform with a new 6.8 by 51mm ammo type. This program has been mysteriously hidden behind top secret clearances that I thought I could never hope to get past, especially after all those weird web searches I did back in 2011. However, Sig Sauer invited me to visit their headquarters in New Hampshire, where they revealed new details about their NGSW prototype, and they even trusted me with live ammo. The competition here involves a few moving pieces that we'll get into, including unique high-pressure hybrid ammo, new suppressor technology, and it's all focused on the goal of increasing the energy on target to defeat modern body armor. The second major reason that they're doing this switch is because high-tech optics are becoming commonplace now, where we're gonna see average soldiers, tier 7 soldiers, hitting point targets out to 800 meters easily. So they want to be able to take advantage of the bigger cartridge power in order to do that. So first, I'll cover my initial thoughts on live firing Sig Sauer's prototype gun, then we'll dive deeper into some of the doctrine implications that this switch would have for the US Army in the future. The Spear is going to be able to do exactly what its name suggests: let soldiers reach out and touch the enemy at further distances. Shooting it surprised me right off the bat because I didn't anticipate how heavy the gun was going to be, weighing in at 8.x pounds. And they won't say what the X is yet because Sig Sauer is still being coy and it's subject to change at this point. I will say that the suppressor on the end of the barrel and the Tango 1:6 variable optic added some weight to the gun, so that might have been what I was feeling a little bit there. Firing the Spear, I instantly felt I would be way more dangerous with this gun than the M4. No one would be complaining about the Spear not being lethal enough like you hear soldiers do all the time with the M4. The receiver is made out of aluminum, and instead of having to replace the whole upper after 50,000 rounds, they have these little steel inserts at key locations which frequently get worn down. This allows the Army to go in and just replace those sacrificial node steel inserts when they fail, instead of a whole receiver needing to be replaced. On the one hand, having that added size would make close quarters combat more difficult, but on the other hand, not having the added firepower would put soldiers at a disadvantage when engaging an enemy wearing body armor. But I guarantee that the same people who complain about the M4 being unreliable and being a pea shooter with no power, they're gonna be the same people who complain about the NGSW having too much recoil. We all know that type of person. They're the ones that are assholes to waiters. And from looking at comparable ammo charts, I'm speculating that we're going to be getting at least twice the kinetic energy on target. It would be unlikely to see anyone running this gun with an M203 grenade launcher underslung, or really anything underslung. That's not really an issue though, because soldiers have moved away and they're now using standalone launchers. Let's bring up our favorite military buzzword checklist here. I've given the entire NGSW program a -1 point for modularity and a +2 points for lethality. That's on a scale from 4 to 57. That scale makes about as much sense as any other scale being used in the Pentagon. Even though it's heavier than the M4, the NGSW is still lightweight compared to other comparable battle rifles. I found out that it only has a 13-inch long barrel. Do you have any idea how short that is? That's 2 inches shorter than the M4 barrel, but it's still able to reach at least 3,000 feet per second muzzle velocity. I think the way they're able to still do that is by running the chamber pressure at 90,000 PSI. Most ammo wouldn't be able to handle that, but their hybrid unique case can. People tend to think high chamber pressures equate to higher recoil, but that's not exactly the case. So here are some of my thoughts on that. When I fired the gun and tried follow-up shots on the exact spot, I found that the recoil was less than I expected. I could make quick follow-up shots. But the key point here is really going to be your expectation. I know that a lot of you in the comments section believe that this high chamber pressure would destroy the barrel quickly and give the gun a really short life cycle. But when I asked SIG, they claim that it meets or exceeds the Army's requirement of 10,000 rounds per barrel. Look, I finally got some of my own 6.8mm rounds that we can compare to the 5.56, and you can see the 6.8 is thick with 3 Cs. I wouldn't want to be out on the receiving end of these rounds, whether I was wearing body armor or not. I kind of feel like this round would, make our enemies around the world fear us more. We know the 6.8 is similar to the 277 SIG Fury, which we also know can reach 3,000 feet per second muzzle velocity from a 13-inch barrel. We also know that the 277, which is comparable to the 6.8, has 9 feet less bullet drop at the distance of 914 meters. It also has 25% greater energy than a 6.5 Creedmoor. So by looking at that comparable round, we can kind of reverse engineer how the 6.8 is going to perform. SIG let us fire the gun from any firing position that we wanted to, and they honestly probably shouldn't have, but I appreciate that they did. We all chose to fire the gun from the standing unsupported position because that's the coolest looking way to shoot. But it's completely impractical. It's really the least forgiving firing position when it comes to recoil. The Army doesn't even qualify on the shooting range from the standing position last time I checked. It's all kneeling and prone because even firing a 5.56 standing and trying to hit anything past 150 meters is tough for your rank and file infantry. So if the recoil didn't bother me too much from the standing position, then I would assume that it wouldn't be that much of an issue from crouched or prone. Maybe you believe the Army and Sig Sauer, and then you would believe that you're getting a lot more bang for your buck as a trade-off with that recoil. The Army seems convinced that there's no other way to defeat near-peer body armor. The Spear's bolt is different too. It's made out of high-quality margin steel, and SIG claims that they haven't had a bolt fail yet. The gun has a 2-position gas valve. If the gun is sandy, dirty, or dry, you can increase the reliability by switching to the adverse gas position. This is a huge advantage new feature compared to the legacy weapon. So when I was adjusting the optic or reloading the gun, it was easier to hold the Spear, as it's called, the NGSW Spear, in my armpit instead of trying to hold it out in front of me like with the M4. The weight of the gun meant I needed to adjust some of my old habits. Did anyone else notice that all 3 bids are required to be tan? What happened to the black rifle? What am I supposed to call my coffee company now? Tan rifle doesn't sound right. Real quick, before we get into the recoil more, be sure to follow me on Instagram at CappyArmy for live updates on my trip to fire the other bids. The recoil of the NGSW Spear is exactly what you would expect from a 6.8 by 51mm round. It's a full-powered cartridge. Shouldering and firing the gun will feel more similar to firing an M14 or an FN FAL. The NGSW program is a battle rifle through and through, so that comes along with all the pros and cons of a high-powered rifle. The kinetic energy on target is going to be much higher than the old M4. With a little extra experience and training and some more time behind the trigger, I could see myself getting well adjusted to the gun. If you're curious why I had a beard while I was at Sig Sauer but not now, have you seen the epic facial hair that their staff has? I couldn't show up there beardless. There are 2 aspects for this bid that no one's talking about that I learned about that are going to be huge factors into the Army's decision for who they pick. And one of those is the suppressor functionality. Because it turns out that all the toxic gases released from the blowback from suppressed weapons has caused major health problems for Special Forces operators, because they're the ones that have been using suppressed guns for the past few decades. SIG's new technology called Surge Suppressor minimizes toxic fumes from the suppressor and pulls toxic gas away from the system. The suppressor has also survived more than 10,000 round tests. We're only now becoming aware of the millions of dollars in cost that it takes to address these health concerns associated with firing suppressors frequently. But the future of warfare is going to be very different. You're going to see every infantryman running with a suppressor. When I was in the Army, we never had silencers as regular infantry. So you can tell the NGSW suppressed is louder than the 5.56 suppressed, but it still definitely helps to dampen the recoil and the signature of the weapon. While it might not impress you, for a Philistine regular Long Island bro like myself, it was surprising to see how silent the NGSW fires with a full-powered gun cartridge. If you've played too many video games, then you might think that suppressors will have like a negative impact on the accuracy of a weapon. In fact, you're probably listening to this video right now while you're playing Battlefield 2042. Hit Alt-Tab, come back to this video. No, they don't negatively impact the accuracy of a gun. They use relatively new machining processes, and it's similar to like a 3D printer, but with metal instead of plastic. This suppressor also has a locking mechanism that guarantees the same trajectory no matter how it's put on. Next up, we need to talk about their unique ammo, where the primer is made of steel and the body holding the gunpowder is made of brass. My layman understanding of how this works is that the steel primer can withstand the higher pressures that they need. More pressure equals more velocity. But is there a weak point here in their ammo at the point where the brass and the steel is attached together by a 20-ton press? Could water get in there, or could it snap apart easily? Apparently you don't have to worry about your lower enlisted privates chewing the hybrid ammo apart because they're just as durable as regular ammo. The Spear uses a 20-round capacity magazine. There are options for 25 or 30. This is the same for all bids, and I believe that the added fire support from those belt-fed NGSWs more than makes up for that 10-round capacity loss. There are a couple of new quality of life improvements and features added here compared to legacy guns. SIG gave the NGSW a side charging handle, which is necessary considering you're loading bigger rounds, and you might want that extra leverage that it provides to clear malfunctions or chamber rounds. When you load your magazine, it has a brand new feature which potentially makes reloading a little easier. You now have two options for sending the bolt forward. There's the original bolt release, then there's a new bolt release near the magazine drop, so you can either use your right finger or left hand to send that bolt forward. Now let's get into the possible doctrine changes and what this would mean for the US Army. It's clear to me that the Army is now spending a ton of money on essentially switching back to what we thought was an old, antiquated philosophy of the main battle rifle. This full-powered cartridge, like the 6.8 by 51mm, went extinct, we thought, except for limited use in designated marksman roles. The Army ditched this type of ammo and gun already back when they moved away from the M14. But they're returning to the old battle rifle doctrine because something revolutionary has happened since the invention of the M16, and it's changed everything. Trust me, they have a very good reason, or at least I buy it. Military generals, not only in the US, but around the world, are going to weapons manufacturers and asking for solutions to this new problem that they're facing out in the field. Talking, of course, about body armor, ballistic plates that are capable of stopping rifle rounds have changed everything, yet again, and it's made old battle rifles like the M14 relevant once more. Everyone thought those guns had been retired in the military sense. We thought that those guns had been reserved for special designated marksman roles. But now every soldier might field them again with the NGSW. You might say that you've watched Demolition Ranch before and you've seen how much of a beating that those plates can take, and you know you'd be right. But the ammo doesn't have to necessarily go through the armor, it just needs to punch enough back deformation into it to wound the enemy. Listen, I've read a lot of recently unclassified documents where Army officers outline how the M14 was the wrong rifle because it only had 20-round capacity, it was too much recoil, and it was just overkill. They write about how soldiers can't identify, let alone hit targets at 800 meters with the full power of M14. But now that we have optics like the SIG Tango 6, and they're cheaper than ever to manufacture, the military reality that we're facing is that regular grunts now have the skills augmented so that they can actually hit targets at 800 meters. It's a variable scope that allows soldiers to flip between 1 to 6 times magnification, essentially allowing them to do both the designated marksman and close quarters combat. Basically what I'm saying here is two roles have been consolidated into one, which changes Army doctrine. I think this could mean that there could be space open for a 5.56 to remain possibly in a personal defense weapon role, to supplement infantry squads, to make room clearing easier. So is that too much? I don't think so, especially if it's a necessity. Do soldiers want to carry shields around with them? No, but it's a necessity. Do they want to carry a giant spear? Probably not. They'd rather just have a dagger. But you need that extra lethality, to use one of my favorite military buzzwords. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Is the 6.8 NGSW the right direction for the Army with its added firepower and new capabilities? If not, how would you solve the issue of body armor and optics becoming more commonplace now? Personally, I believe the NGSW program is an attempt to counter that. This video is part one of a multi-part series where I'll also be covering the SIG Sauer NGSW machine guns. I'm also excited to be traveling to Texas next week to fire the General Dynamics True Velocity weapons. So subscribe and like this video if you want to see those updates. Also, if you'd like to see some of the interviews that I did with the SIG Sauer product managers, be sure to subscribe to Task and Purpose First Squad, where you can see that content. The card should be up there, link in the description. I'm your host, Chris Cappy from Task and Purpose. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all your time. See you next week.